Hey guys, Thomas the Solar Genie here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Cinderella 2021, an Amazon original movie. If you end up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also consider joining my Patreon page. There'll be the second link in the description below. Alright, now that the shilling is out of the way, let's get into it. So before I even knew what this movie was, I had actually caught a review of it, and I had caught a wind of it on Twitter as well, it being trending and all. So I decided I'd figure, I'd watch it, even though I was told that this movie isn't good, to see it for myself. And boy, I just should have listened. Shame that. So, of course, there are a few things we need to get out of the way. Of course, this being Cinderella, this being a story that has been told time and time again. The classic from Disney, obviously being one that will probably pop into most people's minds. That the original movie, if you can call it that. And of course, they're probably older movies, but Disney's Cinderella definitely sticks out head above most, probably. The sort of titular story of Cinderella, and of course, there have, as I mentioned, been many versions of Cinderella. So, here we are once again, readapting or remaking a movie we've seen time and time again. This time, I guess Amazon/Sony decided to give it a shot, and boy oh boy, how Sony has fallen so far from making Vivo to doing this. Oof, what a fall. And here I thought Sony was actually going to start competing with Disney instead of underperforming and doing terrible shit. But can't say I'm too surprised. Again, this is Sony we're talking about, and the most recent Sony movies I can come to think of, not a lot of them are really that great all the way through. And this one, oh boy. So that's the setup. Now we get to talk about what's actually in the movie. So, this is a musical number. Keep that in mind as we sort of fumble through this review. And at first I thought that this was a comedy or something when I saw the poster, but when I checked the genre, it only states it as a musical and a fantasy movie, in which it is a musical number, or a musical movie, and we'll talk about more about that as we progress through the movie. So the movie starts off with some good old-fashioned narration, which I'm not opposed to. This brings us into the world, lets us know what's going on, and things are, as far as a movie starting, it looks like it's going to be something that could be promising. The promise of something with potential is here. Even the first musical number seems to engage in something original, or, at least has some spirit of something. As the people talk about, or sing about, I should rather say, where they reside, which is a place called River Nation. And it starts with the stepmother and her daughters. And we are told by the narration how the sisters behave instead of being shown it with their dialogue, which that's the point of where I don't think narration should chime in and tell us how these characters should act. Narration should build the world if there's a lot to establish. I give that to the movie, but telling us how characters behave, that is just really poor writing. There's so much more you can do by having the actual characters be characters instead of, again, telling us, the audience, how these characters behave, and then it not really being indicated throughout the movie. So now we're already in trouble, since the narration is, again, telling us how characters behave. So, what follows after their exposition is more exposition about how Cinderella got her name. That being her actual name is Ella, and that since she was covered in cinder because of where she works, the stepsisters decided to call her Cinderella. I don't actually remember if they actually ever had that as her background. I'm pretty sure people could have put that together, cinder being a word for soot or burning fire. I'm not sure why I guess they wanted to dumb it down, I suppose. And this is unfortunately where the song, or the musical, takes another dip. After the opening song, the next song sounds like a pre-existing song. Now, this is where things get a little bit complicated, right? Because there are musical movies out there that one-for-one copy exactly, a musical movies. A perfect example, the one that immediately comes to mind, I know it's a bit old school, is Happy Feet, for example. They tap to very pre-existing music, or Chipmunks is another example of this sort of taking music that already exists and already, they just copy it one from one. Here, it's pretty much that, but I would say one step above that, but it's still not great. So it's on the lower end of what you should do for a musical, especially an original musical, or, even if you are remaking Cinderella, you should be, I would hope that the standard of musicals is that you create your own music. And again, the beginning showed us an original song, at least as far as I'm aware. I don't recall hearing a song like it. I could be wrong, but the other songs are very, very indicative of other songs with very slight modifications. So we learn after this little song, this second opening song, divulging that, we learn that the stepmother does want Cinderella to have a suitor, or a boyfriend, or a prince, or something. In fact, she wants all of her daughters to have a prince so that they could live by the man's high life, or whatever. And during some of the musical performances, this one in particular, it's pretty obvious that more musicals do this too, it being pre-recorded, and then, the actors and actresses lip sync, because they have to add on the dancing part of it. That I'm not too bothered by. It's practical, or as practical as you can probably make it. There are some times, particularly very short instances, where her musical vocals are a little bit shoddy, I would say. It's weird. It doesn't happen too often, but I did catch it a little bit. And there are times where that could work. I'm just saying it does. There are times where it's completely out of place. Um, so, anyways, we cut to the prince, uh, who we see is somewhat of at least when we first see him, seems to be a immature sort of prince. He's sort of just chilling with his pals. The king is all like, you gotta marry too. So we got our, our back and forth. And of course, you could argue that this is a step above Cinderella, the Disney version, where we don't really learn a lot about the prince, so I suppose at least they gave him something of something, rather than him being the most generic, stand-in and love at first sight sort of character sort of thing. Anyway, we'll get more into him a little bit later, as the choir sings about the changing of the guard, and this being a really big deal. We cut back to the stepmom, and her denying Cinderella to bring in her dress that she made to sell off, is what she's trying to do. She's trying to make it on her own, and she's like, nope, none of that. Meanwhile, we cut back to the prince and the king arguing about how he doesn't want to be married under the pretenses of you have to marry for, for nobility purposes. So he sings, and again, a very remade version of Somebody to Love song. Again, with some minor quirks here and there, but nothing that would completely off-put it from that song. And in it, or during it, he talks about how he works hard, which I find a bit amusing since he has all these maidens and servants and whatnot. A little bit of nonsense happening there, so, not sure why they decided to put that in there, but okay. Anyway, so the prince, being as cunning as he can try to be, he says that he wants to invite anyone, since the king is forcing this ball on him, to have it so that anyone, be it a prince or someone as low life as a peasant, can attend this ball. And another baffling decision of the writing, the king states that he doesn't make up the rules, even though he's literally the king. That is, quite frankly, what I would assume his job would be. So, again, we have another instance of writing that just is completely off of what is, trying to fit this world, or normal standard worlds of what you would expect to hear from a king or a prince or anything of the like. So, very baffling. Anyway, so we had a little, during this little tuffle, I believe the prince decides that he's going to go a little undercover, and he does catch a glimpse of Cinderella, which is what gauged him to do this in the first place. I didn't write that in my notes, but he did do that. So, anyways, the stepmom, as she's talking, or singing, I should say, to the other stepsisters about the material world, which is closest one-to-one song to the material world's song as you can possibly imagine it. That being, of course, she is sort of self-objectifying their roles, what they are capable of doing, in this era, if you want to put it, where women did not have a equal voice to men, even though at least the dancing seems to be modern, and some of the town seems to be semi-modern. It's a little weird how the town's set up, but whatever. Anyway, so Cinderella runs off, as I mentioned, and she's trying to sell off her dress. And the people around her, even other females, so weird, are telling her that she can never make it because she's also downplayed because she's a peasant on top of being a female. However, the prince is again being hidden and gets up to her. So he essentially gives her money to buy the dress, and she has the money now, so she can buy fabric on her own. Meanwhile, the choir gives us an update about the ball that is going down. So, she, well, on her own, sings about being outside of the box or something, or rather, it's another, I'm sure it's based off of another song, based off of the pretenses of the other two songs that were that way. And the step family also joined in on this song. Meanwhile, the stepmom out of the song portion says that this butler guy named, well, shares my name, Thomas, is to be a stepmom, a husband to Cinderella, potentially, to try to get her to stay away from this ball. She's made her dress, and in this version, they have the stepmom spill a little bit of coffee on it, and that's about the extent of the damage they do to the dress in this version, which is insane. I mean, okay. And just to compare to the Disney version, the stepsisters tear that dress apart. It is in shambles, and they don't even come close to doing anything of the nature. You probably could have just buffered out that small part and would have been fine. But nope, she's got a sulk, and she already, so at some point in the movie, I forget where they establish it, but she has this little butterfly thing, that's a caterpillar that she has, and she has her 3 mice as well. So at some point that is established. And so, after her little wanting to be original song, the butterfly caterpillar thing turns into a butterfly. The butterfly changes into this guy, the one on the left of the main character on the poster there. He claims to be her fairy godmother. Okay. I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, they have him sing some altered version of Wish Upon a Star with some slight altercations. She joins him in the song as he transforms her using his magic. And sets her up with her fine dress and sets her on her way with the butlers, turning the mice into the butlers and carrying her off. Meanwhile, we cut to the ball, where the potential suitor ladies are looking at the prince being all like, we gotta sing about what a man he is. And again, it's a a pre-existing song, and he counterparts it with his own stuff. It's divisive to say that he has already made up his mind about meeting after her once, that they're gonna, be all lovey-dovey. Meanwhile, we got weird cutaways to the Mice's men talking about what it's like to piss, and how weird it is, because they're suddenly men. Yep, that's our comedy portion, I guess. We cut back to the prince, who we see give the gown that he bought to his sister. Anyway, he sings and she sings, joining in, playing some version of Dancing in the Dark. I don't know what song that is, but that's one of the phrases I heard within the song, so I'm sure it's based off of another musical thing. He plays a little piano when they're one-on-oneing, and she claims that she is indeed in love, but she also wants to live up her own life, as she just met this queen at the ball as well, who liked her dress and wanted her to work for this queen. So, even though that is all going down, they are just about to kiss because the love is still in the air, but the clock strikes midnight. So, as per tradition, as per usual in this story, she must run away because that is when the spell ends. So she throws off her shoes, which in all versions are for whatever reason the thing that remains unchanged. Even though we are told that things change in the context of this very movie, so I shrug. And of course, the rest of her stuff transforms back, also giving us nightmare fuel as one of the mice transforms, or one of the men transforms back into a mouse, except they keep his head as a human head for an expended amount of time, even though the first human turned into a mice like that, but the second one, they held on to his head just being this big head with a small mouse body, and they just hold on it for some fucking reason instead of just insta-snapping him back. So yeah, nightmare fuel. Anyway, we got back to the king, who is yelling at the prince, being disappointed that he chose this path of rebellion and falling in love on his own and all this stuff. We got back to the stepmom, heading down to Cinderella, and for the first time ever, seeing Cinderella down in the dumps. In this version, she decides to open up, talking about how she used to play piano and how she was denied this opportunity because she was also a woman, you see, who was denied the opportunity to fulfill the full promise of being a piano player because, again, she was a female in the times. However, she finds the shoe and realizes that she was the one she saw at the ball, and sings that hope is a waste of time because she's, in this version, projecting that her failure, since she'd failed at, realizing her full potential, that it is useless to hope for things to change, hope for, to reach to this unreachable location, this unreachable, obtainable thing, and that's where she says her cruelty ends, is pretending that she can do that. Anyway, we cut to the king and queen discussing how they used to be in love, and how that love has dwindled away. And the king eventually states after the fact that he has finally been wrong. And thus, the crier once again gives our new update. And every update, by the way, is some sort of song update. So, as this is going on, the prince is given the other shoe that was left behind. And he goes door to door, trying to match the shoe to the female of the one from the ball. And we get a weird, interesting introspection moment of one of his pals who says that love ain't worth living if you can't have love in it. And it cuts to him, and he just has this moment, and it's the first time any of his friends, the four of them, or the three of them, that the movie really focuses on one in particular as he has this moment. And speaking of belittling, throughout the movie, I neglected to mention that the king and queen have a daughter as well, but she is, throughout the whole movie, every time she proposes or attempts to propose something, she is shut down consistently, and, because, again, she is of the female persuasion, and that's apparently no good. I'm just saying what's in the movie. So that happens, I want to say, 3 or 4 times in the movie where they push her away. And, yeah, anyway. So, he catches up to her, the prince catching up to Cinderella, and he sings, and she, or she was singing, I should say, and he catches her off guard, and she stops, and proceeds to help her get to her destination. So they kiss, and she gets to do her thing that she wants to do, too. Anyway, the king gets a poorly sung song on purpose, I'm assuming, but it's just god-awful. It's cringe-worthy, if I dare use the word, trying to sing to his queen. And as they sort of make up, he decides that he's going to finally give his rule over to the daughter, and the daughter is, of course, super excited, as she has all these plans. And thus, with that out of the way, the town sings with Cinderella in the forefront of the singing about how we need to get loud, sort of a reprieve new song that sort of revives the beginning stuff with some new stuff in it, along with the stepmom, who is finally able to stand with her. And we cut to the narration, wisping us away into the skies as the movie comes to its close. And that was Amazon's Cinderella 2021. And boy, oh boy, was that something. So let's break this down, shall we? So we have this tale that's been told many a times, and again, at first, originally, I thought this was a comedy, but there's none, or I should say the attempts of comedy in here are piss poor, but this is now but it is stated as a musical and a fantasy, so let's focus on the ones that it claims to be. So, under the music category, we have a bunch of songs, I want to say the majority outside of the first and last song, that are, again, as close to copy and pasted other songs as you can get. And with that, I would say it's lazy that this is the way that we do this thing. I have said, I would have said that if I were reviewing Happy Feet or, Alvin and the Chipmunks. Regardless, despite if they have their own characters or whatnot, it is again, this sort of thing that exists still, and it is a shame that it has to be this way sometimes when, again, the movie seems to at least indicate at the beginning that it's not going to be that it's going to be all original music or something, right? And there's a lot here. There's a lot of potential in a Cinderella story. I mean, this story has been told time and time again. There's so much you can do. And this is the result of looking at what came before and trying to be woke as well. Don't think I don't catch these things. I totally do. If we are accounting if this was trying to be a comedy, I think what is sacrificed of that comedy is trying to also appease and trying to pander. And what I think the break between those two elements is that you have the step sisters who, again, we are told what kind of characters they are, and they really don't have a lot of time to expand upon those things. Again, which is probably why we are told these things about these two characters in particular. That being an example. Now, if you wanted it to be a comedy, and let's say you were bouncing off the original or the Disney version for intents and purposes to set my example here, what you could do is have the stepsisters still be cruel if you're, being still a bit faithful to that version of it, and you set that off by the comedy. Now, reflecting in them being, made fools of later in the movie, you have terrible, awful things happen. As we like to call it in the business of comedy, slapstick comedy. This is, of course, a very popular and very classical example of the Three Stooges levels of slapstick I'm talking about here. Now, I know that doesn't appeal to everyone, but it could appeal to people more if you offset that with their, if I dare use the word, bitchiness, their we're better than you attitude, and again, offset that with they get their upcomings at the end or near the end of the movie. That has been done before in other versions of Cinderella, Disney Cinderella in the future movies as well. So again, this is something you can do. Or perhaps if you were, again, taking the comedy route, you have Cinderella be the meta character, for example, and have her be super aware that the rest of the world is singing, and, this is super odd, and, again, this is a idea that has been done to death, and they do it a little bit at the beginning, but she sort of falls in tune as well, and have her offset to the musical style. That is an example of something you could do. But again, even with it being a musical, I would say that the standard of it is low bar. And here's the thing, is that if you're going to add in the comedy bit, there's a movie that has done this. Everything that they try to do here has been done better. It has been done better. And it is, ironically, I dare say ironically better, by Disney already. It's a little movie called Enchanted. If you haven't seen Enchanted, it is Disney poking a little bit of it at itself, at its, at its parody core. All original music, all original singing, and it is a very much a classical Disney story as well, on top of that. It is about a girl who was once animated falling into the human world, and the world is updated. Everything is modern. She steps into the modern world, and it's pretty much a Cinderella-esque type of story where she falls in love at first sight, but the guy, of course, is modern, but they still have this sort of weird connection where he seems to still fall in love with her. It does take throughout the whole movie, instead of just being, the one eye catch and it being all said and done. But, again, this Enchanted movie has its own music, its own style, and it's mocking a little bit of its earlier tropes of Disneydom. So this has been done before, and it's been done so much better. Again, if you have not seen Enchanted, this is what this movie is trying to do, I feel like, and is doing so poorly. If it is trying to go for that. Even, again, under the umbrella of being a musical, all the music here is just ripped. It is copied with slight alterations. You couldn't even be bothered to make your own music. What? That is so lazy. And again, there's so much you can do. There are so many versions of this you can try to tell. Again, you can make Cinderella a modern story. I don't see why you can't. This has been done with Enchanted before. The dresses being modernized. They even have her in a business suit in the movie at one point, just to show that they can be out of the time. So, I'm not sure why it didn't try to do something a little bit different. Something to set it apart instead of being something so substandard. Again, and the characters are so dissected by what we are told of them rather than what we see of them, what they are experiencing. So I guess we get to focus on Cinderella herself as a character, as much as a character as she can be. She has her own goals and aspirations to, again, be a business woman in a time of where, again, women, even though we see at the beginning, they seem to be, it appears as if they are equal, at least in the opening sequence, and then we're told that through the world that, the whole peasantry thing and that old shtick is very much the tone of where we're going. And when she meets the prince again, or the prince meets her, I should say, it's him falling in love with her at first sight, which is very Disney-esque of the movie. And what's weird, I find, is that the movie is opting a choice near the end of the movie. It's her either choosing him or her choosing her path. And he counters by saying you could have both. Literally saying you can have your cake and eat it too. That is literally what happens in the movie. Or I should say metaphorically, sort of, too. That's what happens in the movie. So, yeah. And, I don't know. The reason I say woke is because the whole godmother thing, they clearly wanted to be like, hey, it's gonna be a guy wearing a dress. We can do that because we're woke. And, it does seem like woke for woke's sake. Instead of, I suppose he can sing a little bit, even though other parts they try to make him appear creepy. I'm not sure why he does it, where he says certain very one or two lines in this sort of weird way. I'm not sure why they did that. So yeah. I really don't care that this is being done. Um, I'd rather just see well-written characters. That'd be nice for a change, instead of, again, going for woke. And I do want to say it's poorly written woke. If you're gonna go for diversity, if that is what you are aiming to achieve, I beg future people who watch this video, please, please write them well. Please, just do your damn fucking work. Put the work in. Make them actual characters. I want to say his character is... I mean, I get it. There's not much to pull from in the original. The fairy godmother in the Disney version is just a kind, godmotherly type of archetype. There's something you can pull from that, I'm sure. You know, and but again, that is the trade-off, right? The wickedness of the step-parents, or the stepmother, and the stepsisters is offset by the kindness. Is offset by the grandmother who gives Cinderella this chance. You know, and the story. I'm always a little bit of on the whole magic thing, since that is the one part of the movie that always in any most iterations where the magic of the shoe just is maintained. I don't know. I always thought that a bit off-putting or a bit strange even in the original movie. But I don't know what other way around that you could find other than, again, if you were to remake this and do it well instead of this, is just have him find her again and then actually recognize her because of how off she is from every other female. She stands out. That should be the thing, right? She is unique in this set of people. And he recognized her in the party, so that shouldn't be too hard, I would think. At least in this version, so... Again, another chance you had, and you didn't even go for it. Even though they didn't do the whole shoe on her foot thing. So I guess they avoided it to an extent, even though they had the shoes there anyway. Whatever. Point being that there's a lot to say here, which is why this review is so long. So, again, not surprised to see another remake of something that's been told time and time again. Not even remotely surprised that it is bad, with all the musical lacking in versatility there. The lack of character content within it, making the whole attempt to be woke thing just come off as you're just trying to get those brownie points without earning any of it. You're just being diverse. And if anything, it does more harm than good. At the end of the day, when you just slap on something just to make it slapped on, it just hurts more than it does good. So do better. As one Mr. Falcon would say, do better than this, please. I'm going to give this movie a 2 or 3 out of 10. I'm going to go with a 3. And I think I'm being charitable with the 3. I think the reason I would go for a 3 is because at least, again, they have that original opening song and ending song. So at least it has that. But that's not a lot. And again, I suppose she has something going on, Cinderella herself as a character, but again, there's a lot of gaps here that need to be filled in to make a fulfilling, even Cinderella story, as It's a simple story. So how do you fuck this up? Is the question I think we all need to ask. How do you fuck this up? You're giving it on a silver glass shoe, and you just throw it away for songs that exist, woke points, and terrible rating. And this is what passes sometimes for good. I don't understand. Why are we here? Just to suffer? I don't know. But if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord server. The second will head you over to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.